go. Another round of Already Aoife's. Round two, ding ding. Emily Henry's Funny Story is the first book up because these three are going to be books that I have already read something from the author before, and this is their newest release. So I've got Emily Henry's Funny Story. I'm also going to be picking up a novel love story by Ashley Poston, and I need to find a third book. I've got the Ashley Poston from NetGalley. Emily Henry's book, I went out and bought it like 2 days ago, but I cannot wait any longer to pick this one up. This one is about Daphne and Miles, whose respective partners have actually ended up together. Even while Daphne and Miles were in relationships with Peter and Petra, they have ended up together. They've been friends for years. They've been friends since they were children. And now they are getting together. I think they're going to get married or something throughout the course of this book. And Daphne and Miles are kind of getting over that all together. And I think there's going to be a little bit of a hijinks of like, well, if they can do it, why can't we fake dating kind of a situation? Let's see how we do. I have had a great time with every book of Emily Henry's that I've read so far. So I am very hopeful that this one is also going to be an absolute knockout. I am returning it to my desk. I am around 100 or so pages into Emily Henry's Funny Story. This may be her best book yet. And I know that's a very bold claim to make when you're only about a third of the way through. Best book yet. I absolutely love the energy between Daphne and Miles. Miles, I've seen him described on the internet a couple of times as Nick Miller coded, and this is 100% correct. He's also a bartender. He is also a little bit kind of spacey. He's very caring about other people around him. I also really connect with Daphne in the way of she has moved to Waning Bay in order to be with Peter before their relationship broke down. And now she doesn't really feel like she has an identity or any kind of connection to the town. She doesn't really love her job. She doesn't really have any friends. She doesn't have like the history that Peter would have had there. I'm so intrigued by this book. I am so intrigued by it. I really genuinely want to keep going with it. As in, I need my work day to be finished so that I can go outside, sit on the balcony and read my book for the rest of the evening. I genuinely finished Funny Story about 2 weeks ago and then neglected to tell you. Did not sit down and tell you a single thing about this book. But I think that's because my situation with the end of the book was very similar to my situation at the beginning or at the 50% mark. I had such a good time with it. I think genuinely this is Emily Henry's best work so far. And I am a big Emily Henry stan. I've loved all of the books that she's done so far, but I truly think that this is the best one. There is the romance in it, and I do think that the romance is very kind of not the defining factor of the story, because something that I love about it is the big romance or the big love story in here is Daphne's relationship with herself and her coming to terms with her life now that her relationship has broken down and starting to put new roots into a town that she didn't really see herself being a part of. It's something that I've also experienced. I have left a relationship. I have left the town that relationship brought me to. I've moved to a new city. I've tried to make friendships. It's so well written in that situation. It so well portrays what it is like to basically have to start over. There were a couple of things that I had kind of expected were going to happen. There were a couple of things that I had kind of predicted, and they did come true. So I am going to dock maybe a point or two just because of that slight predictability, but I do genuinely still think that this is Emily's best work so far. It is also kind of similar to everything else that she's done so far in that it's a romance but mismarketed. There is a romance in it. There is the romance between Daphne and Miles, and I loved watching that develop, and I loved watching them kind of get to know each other and become more comfortable in each other's presence. And the sex scenes that are in this book are written gratuitously. They're not out of pocket. They're really well done and they're really well spaced out. But like I said, I think the big story of this book is a woman who's getting back on her feet after adversity. I think that is the cusp of this book here. And I think that once again, Emily Henry has mismarketed and missold herself. And I would put my money on the table right now. This is the 21st of May. I'd put my money on the table right now that Emily Henry's going to win the Goodreads Choice Awards at the end of this year. I will come back and put this clip in if that does happen. But I don't necessarily think that this is a romance book. I think this is a kind of a contemporary fiction or a genre fiction or a literary fiction
that just happens to have a romance running through it. But that doesn't take away any of my enjoyment from it. And that didn't take away any of the enjoyment that I took from it. I think it would be a really great book to talk about in a book club because there is genuinely so much that you can take from this. I had such a good time. I don't know where we're going to go with this series next. I have had a couple of thoughts in my head, but I think we're going to put a little pause on it for now. The Amazing Readathon is coming up in June, and there's going to have to be a lot of kind of contemporary books, and there's going to have to be a lot of historical fiction books that I need to concentrate on, and none of those really fit into the topic of this video. So by the next time you see me, the Amazing Readathon might likely be over, and it might likely be July. Hello, hi. I kind of lied to you. I know that I said we were going to go straight on to a novel love story, and that I didn't know what I was going to do for the third book in this. And then inspiration pretty much hit from the sky. I cannot believe that I didn't think of this one, but The Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren came out in May, and it somehow didn't register that this is one of my favorite authors of all time. And naturally, I'm going to be really excited about The Paradise Problem coming out. At present, I'm about 25% of the way through this book. I'm listening to the audiobook because I started it while I was on a walk earlier on today, and I'm hooked on this book. I am so invested. I've had a kind of an up and down with Christina Lauren lately because of Something Wilder. That was a second chance romance, and those don't necessarily work for me. And you can argue that this is also a second chancer, but it's kind of not. Because Anna and West in this book had never actually been in a relationship the first time that they'd met each other. So it's more like a strangers to friends to roommates to lovers situation. West is the son of one of the country's biggest supermarket conglomerates. He is in line for money that I cannot even visualize in my head, but there is a stipulation. He's going to his sister's wedding on a small island in Indonesia, and he has to bring his wife with him because he's told his family that he's been married for 5 years to a woman he met in college. That would be Anna. She is completely unaware that they are still married. They got married when they were in like their second year of college so that they could get family housing because it was a lot cheaper for both of them and it worked out for both of their situations. But on the last day of college, Anna signed a bunch of documents and was pretty much under the impression that these were divorce papers. They weren't, so Anna and West are still married, and he's basically calling in the favor of all favors so that he has a wife to bring to this wedding, get his hands on the rest of his inheritance, and smooth everything out with his family. I love this. This feels like Christina Lauren at their finest. Brie brought out a vlog that she did like a blind test of some romance books and fantasy books that she was going to be reading in the lead up to Steamy Lit Con at the beginning of August. And she said that this felt like if you enjoyed The Unhoneymooners, this would be a good book for you. And I love The Unhoneymooners. It was the first Christina Lauren book that I read. It was the first kind of open door romance that I've read. So it does hold a special place in my heart for that anyway. But this, she's right, this does feel like vintage Christina Lauren, and I'm so on board with it. I'm really interested to get into the family dynamic of this because I feel like it's going to be a very difficult situation for Anna to navigate, and I am here for a family drama in a book, so let's see where we go with it. Join me for blanket time. I am about 70 or so percent of the way through with the Paradise Problem, and I'm slightly more ahead of where I wanted to be when I was going to give you these updates, but I've just been having such a good time with this that I kind of didn't want to stop reading it so that I could tell you what was going on. It is so like vintage Christina Lauren. It's the same kind of hijinks, it's the same kind of subterfuge as I had come to know and love from The Unhoneymooners. And I had such a great time with that one. I know that it can be a little bit of a kind of a Marmite book, but The Unhoneymooners is my favorite Christina Lauren by far until we get to here. I don't think that there's going to be a whole lot that's going to throw this off course to be my favorite Christina Lauren, unless something happens like Anna murders literally every single person on this island in Indonesia. Something absolutely terrible has to happen for me to no longer fuck with this book. And I fuck with it so hard. I'm really enjoying this. Something that I said I wanted to get from this book was family drama. I felt like it would be absolutely overflowing with it, and I was 100% correct.
Liam, or West, however you wish to refer to him, I'm going to call him West for the majority of this update. West's family is absolutely fucking awful. I had a feeling going into it that they would be kind of like the Bluths from Arrested Development, with absolutely no tact, more money than they know what to do with. These people haven't lost any of their money, but I just don't like the character of any of these people. The only person in this family who's kind of the only person in this family who is kind of reparable for me is his sister Charlie. And even then, she can be a little bit kind of ARS like, if you know what I mean, from like The Simple Life in the early 2000s, that kind of show. She can be kind of that sort of person. But I've just come out of a scene before Charlie, who is West's sister, before her wedding. There's this whole rehearsal dinner, and there's this massive blowout between West and his dad, basically about the future of the company and about his role in the future of the company and whether or not he's going to come back into it. I feel like it had been discussed to death even before the start of the book. I feel like it's something that has been hashed out with this family so often. And there's also something that we've been alluded to a couple of times has happened to cause this rift between he and his father that we haven't gotten to the bottom yet as the reader. And I'm genuinely intrigued as to what this thing was. We only know that it has to do with Pisa, and I don't know if that's Pisa, the city in Italy, or if Pisa is this kind of software that West had developed one year when he was in college, and that was supposed to be something like stock taking or cataloging for one of the stores, and then it went nationwide, but something must have happened to it. That's my guess at the moment. And as I said, I'm about 70% of the way through. I think I have about an hour and a half reading left at my reading speed, which is very likely to be done by tomorrow. I'm very likely to do it in the afternoon. I've got no meetings at work tomorrow, so I can kind of just plow through with it. But I don't want it to be done. I don't want to be finished with this book. I'm having such a great time with it. This is definitely going to be a 5-star. Unless something absolutely drastic happens. Like I said, Anna has to murder the entire cast of characters in this book for me to knock it down to even a 4.5, because she'd probably be justified. All of these people are absolutely assholes. But it's vintage Christina Lauren. It's exactly what I wanted to read when I picked up a Christina Lauren book. It's got the heat. It's got the characters. It's got the love. It's got the humor. It's got everything that I want in a book. I don't know why I completely forgot that this book existed. I'm so sorry to it, but I am so glad that we're getting to know each other now. This is how the blanket looks, by the way. Yesterday I finished The Paradise Problem while I was at work, and I enjoyed this. I had a really good time with it, but there were a couple of things across the book that I didn't really gel so well with, and most of them were West's family. They're so awful and they're so horrible to read about, but there is a kind of a redemption arc for some of them. Now, some of them do kind of get what's coming to them, and I did really enjoy reading that part because I love me a Schadenfreude. But overall, there were a couple of things that I just kind of about this book. I had a feeling that so much was going wrong in Anna's life already that even more would continue to go wrong. For example, when all of her paintings were being featured in an art gallery, I had a strong feeling that the paintings wouldn't actually be picked up. Because she's in Indonesia, she's not at home, she's not going to be able to meet with her agent so that they're going to be transferred over. I just had this feeling that she was going to get a call from her agent, that nobody was at the house to collect the paintings, so the gallery showing didn't go ahead, she didn't make any money. That isn't what happened. There was a totally different thing that came of the gallery. I think my way probably would have made for a little bit more drama than what was brought in that way. Didn't particularly love the third act conflict that was in here. It is pretty quickly smoothed out, but something that I did really love about this book is Anna's connection with West's niece Reagan. She's about 10 or 11 years old, and she is going through a particularly rough time at school. Not academically, in terms of in the playground. She has a lot of people who are picking on her. There's a lot of people who are kind of ostracizing her. And Anna, who's been through quite a lot of challenges throughout her life, basically just takes Reagan in under her wing and tells her, oh, these are ways that I would have dealt with that when I was your age and I was going through the same thing. As a girl who was also bullied in school and who was also ostracized and left out to the side, reading that Reading that was incredibly hit me right there. I had such a great time reading this, and I really enjoyed watching Reagan come out of her shell as she does towards the end of this book. Now that we're 2 books down, we've got one more to go in this video, and I don't know how this one is going to go. I am in a little group chat with some of my friends from BookTube: Brianna, Jess, Margaret, Neva, and Brittany. Of those 5, 4 of them have read this book. Only one has enjoyed it, and the other 3 have DNF'd it. So I don't know how I'm going to get along with this, but I'm going to read a novel love story. I've also seen on the B and K Book Club Discord that this is not best experienced as an audiobook. So this one is going to have to be a reading it with my eyes book. But I've heard a couple of really strange things about it. That it doesn't read as an Ashley Poston book. It doesn't read as the same kind of warmth in the writing and the flow that would have had. I've also seen that there's going to be something really weird about the ending to this. I have been tasked to be the guinea pig and to get to the ending of this book. I don't know how we're going to go. I don't know how it's going to go. It is quite short. I think it's only like 300 and something pages. It's 357. That's doable for this weekend. Let's see how we get on. Do you think my friends will still like me if I like this book? I went on a little weekend trip and I brought my book with me and I read it by the beach, and I'm at 228 pages of about 357, 358. So I should finish this realistically quite soon. I'm having a better time than the rest of the Petty Besties did. Outside of Neva, Neva had a really good time with this, and I think she gave it 4 stars. I am not going to give it as high. I think I'm going to be hovering around a 3. If she gets a 3.5, she's doing really well. This does not feel like Ashley Poston's books. This is so different to The 7-Year Slip, and this is so different to The Dead Romantics. It needed to be edited down another time. There's so many references to Anders having minty green eyes, and like my nails are minty green. This Tipp-Ex is minty green. My shirt can arguably be called minty green. Minty green is not an eye color that I want to have. It's not an eye color that somebody should have unless they're a vampire. That's weird. A, the color, and B, how many times we're actually making a reference to it is just too many. But we're also at the stage now where there should be a bit of an advancement in the romance between Eileen and Anders, and I don't see it. There's no chemistry between these two people. I'm not picking up what they're putting down. They've had one relatively chaste kiss, maybe about 60 pages or so back, and I just don't feel any chemistry between the two of them. They went from being completely at loggerheads to one another. She slapped him. We are not okay with her slapping him, by the way. She physically assaulted this man, and he basically was just brushing it off. He was just like, oh, this stings. It's okay, though. I hated that. I should likely finish this book. I should likely finish it either tonight or early tomorrow. I'm going to read it on my lunch break when I come back from going to the supermarket, because while I was away, I didn't get any groceries, so I have nothing in the house for dinner. I'm going to read it when I come back. I'm going to go out on the balcony after work and I'm going to read it. I might finish it tonight. If I don't, it would be tomorrow. But I don't know how I feel about this. It doesn't feel like an Ashley Poston book. It's almost like a ghostwriter who put their name to an Ashley Poston story. And I loved the concept of it. I love the idea of it. And I kind of want to know how it is that Eileen escaped or got through the veil between the real world and Oloraton. And I feel like there's going to be some kind of a weird butterfly effect in that if these things happen in this book and it somehow affects how the rest of the world is going to go, even though the story is kind of finished because the author in here has died. I don't know how it's going to end, but I have been told by a couple of people, I've been told by Jess, that the ending is a little bit insane. So we're kind of hurtling towards there at relative pace. Let's see when we get there. We've come to the end of the line. I finished a novel love story last night, and I think this is the weakest Ashley Poston book so far. This one is definitely only going to be a 3 stars. I did run it through Copilot this morning, and it's a 3 star. At best, it's a 3.5. But it just... Did you know that Anders has minty green eyes. It is so rarely referenced that you might have missed it. It's only said about once every 3 to 4 pages. And I just think that that's a little bit too much. It's a little bit too repetitive. It just doesn't work. The third act conflict did not work for me at all. I really thought that that was such a strange way to go about it. The revelation that we get about Anders and why he's a little bit different to everyone else in the town, and why he seems to be the only one who knows that this is all set in a book, it was just too much for me. It really just didn't work. I went into this with so much hope and so much anticipation, and it just did not hit the mark for me. And I had been talking to Jess from the Hex Library about this because she had either read it through or had DNF'd it but had looked up like a Spark Notes or something, so she knew what the ending to it was. But she messaged me at about 1:30 in the morning my time and said, "Do you feel like throwing the book across the room yet?" I don't know if it came to that point of call, but there was a point where I just wanted to put this book down. I just wanted to be finished with it. Am I glad that I read them? Yes. Am I glad that I've experienced them? Yes. I mean, I had a great time with the other two. I had a fantastic time with Emily Henry. I had a really good time with Christina Lauren. It's just that Ashley Poston let the gang down this time. I kind of wish that I wasn't ending this video on such a bum note, but that's just the way the cookie crumbles. Hopefully the next time that we see each other for an episode of Already Aoife's, it's going to go a little bit better than this one has. Of the 3 books that I have read, I think the one that I would most recommend to you is Emily Henry's one. Funny Story is her best book by far. I stand by that. I know I said that when I was reading it back in like April or so, but I absolutely stand by it, and I absolutely think it's the best book that she's written so far. I'll probably go back and read all of hers to see where it actually slots in terms of how do the others hold up as well, but so far this is the best of the bunch. Also, The Paradise Problem was really good vintage Christina Lauren. It was the exact kind of vibes that I needed on the day that I was reading it. If you've already read Ashley Poston, this one is going to be a disappointment to you. If it's your first meeting with Ashley Poston, I think you might enjoy it. If you have made it this far and you don't have anything you want to say, but you do want to let me know that you're here, why don't you just let me have a knitting ball emoji? Because while I am telling you this, I'm also making my blanket. Don't forget to like and subscribe because I have new videos up every week. Now, get on out of here.